My children left me to fade away. The doctors pleaded with them to come, but their answer was simple: he's nothing to us. 7 days later, they stormed into the hospital, eyes gleaming with greed, expecting an inheritance. But my bed was empty. Only a letter lay on the pillow, and when they read it, their faces drained of color. They believed they'd erase me from their lives. They were wrong. Pain sliced through my chest, dragging me back from the void. My eyes snapped open, squinting against the harsh sting of fluorescent light. The air reeked of disinfectant, sharp, sterile, cutting straight through the haze in my mind. A steady beep, some machine beside me hammered at my ears, sinking with the dull ache in my ribs. Where was I? My fingers twitched, brushing against stiff sheets. I tried sitting up. That idea. My legs were dead weight, and a tug in my arm reminded me of the catheter taped to my skin. I winced, collapsing back onto the pillow. The room was small. White walls. Metal rails. My eyes drifted toward the bedside table. A wallet. A gold wristwatch. My glasses. One lens shattered like a spider web. My stomach dropped. Those glasses, I'd been wearing them when. A flash. Blinding headlights. A horn blaring. Steel screaming. Then nothing. An accident. I'd been in an accident. I fumbled for the call button, my thumb trembling as I pressed it. The door creaked open. A man in a white coat entered, shoes squeaking on the dull tile floor. Dr. Merrick, the name tag read. He looked to be in his 60s, gray streaks in his hair and a face worn thin with years of long nights and harder conversations. He checked the monitor, then turned to me. His eyes softened. "Mr. Halbridge, you're awake," he said gently. "How do you feel?" Like I got hit by a freight train, I rasped. My throat was dry as gravel. I tried to chuckle, but it came out as a painful cough. "What happened?" He paused, adjusting his glasses. "You were in a car accident. Lost a lot of blood. We stabilized you, but it was close. Close." The word hit like a weight to the chest. My thoughts scattered, then snapped to focus. My kids. Nolan, Maisie, where are they? I pictured them pacing in the hallway. Nolan with that restless frown. Maisie glued to her phone but anxious, worried. They'd be here. Of course they would. They were mine. Dr. Merrick looked away, his fingers tightening around the chart in his hands. "We tried to contact them," he said, voice cautious, as if each word had to be placed with care. "It's complicated." Complicated? I pushed myself up slightly, ignoring the fire in my chest. "What do you mean, complicated? Are they all right?" "They're fine," he said quickly. But his eyes didn't meet mine. He flipped the page on the chart pointlessly. He wasn't reading it. "You need to rest, Mr. Halbridge. Your body's been through trauma." Rest? I didn't want rest. I wanted answers. If they were fine, why weren't they here? The room suddenly felt colder. The beeping of the monitor too loud. I gripped the bed rail, my knuckles pale. "Doctor, just tell me the truth. Where are my children?" He sighed, shoulders sagging, like he'd rehearsed this moment in his head too many times. "We'll talk more, I promise. But for now, no." My voice came out hoarse, but firm. "I want to know. Now." He stood there for a beat, then slowly lowered into the chair beside my bed, still holding the chart like a shield. Outside the window, rain began tapping softly, a quiet rhythm beneath the hum of the hospital machines. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken things. "I need you to stay calm, Mr. Halbridge," he said, his tone low but deliberate. "You've been through enough already." "Calm," I whispered, my grip on the blanket tightening. "You said my kids are fine, but they're not here. What are you not telling me?" His eyes fell to the floor. After a long pause, he began. "After the crash, your condition was critical. You needed a transfusion immediately, but the hospital didn't have enough of your blood type in reserve. I called your son, Nolan, first, then your daughter, Maisie." He stopped again. His lips pressed into a thin line. "They didn't come." The words hit me like a hammer. "Didn't come? My kids?" I stared at him, waiting, hoping he'd correct himself. That he'd misspoken. But he hadn't. The beeping monitor filled the silence, each pulse stabbing deeper. "What do you mean they didn't come?" My voice trembled, barely a whisper. I spoke with Nolan myself, Dr. Merrick said, his voice softer now. I told him it was urgent, that you might not survive. He hesitated again, watching my reaction like he was afraid of what came next. He said, that wasn't his problem. Not his problem. The words rang in my ears, sharp and cold. Nolan. My son. The boy I stood by every time he stumbled. The one I handed a car, a business, a life. He said that. I froze. My chest felt hollow, like someone had carved out my heart and left nothing in its place. I pictured Nolan, grinning as I handed him the keys to that cobalt blue Zephyr coupe. His laugh had been full of life, youthful and reckless. Was all of it a lie? And Maisie? I asked, the words barely forming. I dreaded the answer but needed it all the same. My daughter. My little girl, who once hugged me so tight the day I paid her tuition, swearing she'd never forget it. Dr. Merrick shifted in his chair. It creaked under him. She didn't say much, he replied. Just hung up. Hung up. Outside, the rain pounded harder, each drop like a hammer against my skull. Maisie, with her polished smiles and endless posts about self-growth and gratitude, couldn't even spare a word for her dying father. I stared at the ceiling. My eyes burned, but I refused to let the tears come. Not yet. I'm sorry, Everett, Dr. Merrick said quietly, using my first name for the first time. His hand hovered as if to comfort me, then dropped. I didn't want to tell you like this, but you deserve the truth. Deserved. The word didn't comfort. It felt like an afterthought. Like someone tossing a coin at a beggar too late. I turned my head toward the window. The glass was streaked with rain, blurring the gray city beyond. Can you leave me alone for a while? I asked, my voice flat. Emotionless. He nodded and stood. I'll check in soon. If you need anything, I won't. I didn't look at him as he left. The door creaked shut behind him, swallowed by silence. I lay there, watching the water run down the window. Every drop echoed a truth I didn't want to face. My children were gone, not dead, but absent in every way that mattered. They had left me behind. Discarded me. Why fight for them now? Why fight at all? The rain outside had softened to a drizzle, its gentle rhythm now the only sound in the room. I didn't move. The ache in my chest had spread no longer just from the accident, but from something deeper. A hollow, growing void. Nolan's words, his problem looped in my head, tangled with Maisie's silence. My children, my own blood. They left me to die. I turned my head slowly. The movement sent a jolt through my spine. On the nightstand sat my old watch, gold, scuffed with time, its face dulled from years of wear. Etched on the back, to Everett. Forever, Lila. My wife's gift, given the day we found out she wouldn't survive the illness. I reached for it, my fingers brushing the warm metal. For a moment, I felt her hand again in mine, steady, loving, fearless. Lila would have stood by me. She always did. But she was gone now, and the children I had raised in her memory had turned their backs on me. I closed my eyes. Memories flooded in. Nolan and Maisie, just toddlers then, barely reaching my knees. Giggling as I read them bedtime stories, nestling into my chest. I had turned down promotions, worked the graveyard shifts. I built a life for them from nothing. Every sacrifice was for them. And now, they'd tossed me aside, like an unpaid bill. The thought crept in quietly, heavy as stone. Maybe I should let go. Just close my eyes. Let the pain fade. Stop fighting. Stop being a burden. The monitor beside me slowed its rhythm, mirroring my shallow breaths. Was this how it ended? Was this how I let go? But then another memory surfaced. One with teeth. Years ago, when my business had collapsed overnight, I sat alone in a dark office. Bills piled high. Staff gone. My reputation in tatters. Everyone said to walk away. To quit. I didn't. I fought. Brick by brick, I rebuilt that business into something real. I forged it out of desperation, grit, and defiance. That version of Everett Halbridge didn't give up. Not then. Not now. I opened my eyes. My jaw clenched. Was I really going to let them win? My gaze returned to the watch. Lila's voice echoed in my mind, clear as day, "You're stronger than you know." I wasn't done. Not yet. With effort, I reached toward the bedside table. Pain flared through my ribs. My hand found my phone. Cracked screen. Cold glass. My fingers trembled. I hovered over a name in my contacts, Marcus Daly. Friend. Lawyer. The only person I'd trusted with my will. If anyone would understand, it'd be Marcus. But could I trust anyone now? The door across the room looked farther than it was. But in my mind, it was more than just a door. It was a choice, a way out, or a way forward. The phone grew heavier in my hand. Its faint glow lit the dim hospital room. Nolan's words. Nazy's silence. The betrayal sat like iron in my chest. I had given them everything. Education, cars, second chances. And they left me for dead. No more. I wasn't done. I tapped Marcus's name. My heart pounded, pressing against the bruises in my ribs. The Ford drip pulsed. The monitor beeped. I was still here. Still breathing. The line clicked. Everett. Marcus's voice came through, warm but laced with that dry humor he wore like armor. You're alive. I was about to file a missing persons report. Not funny, I said, my voice gravel but steady. I leaned back against the pillow. The sterile sheets crinkled beneath me. They didn't come, Marcus. Nolan. Maisie. The hospital called. They ignored it. There was a pause on the line. Then a slow, low whistle. That's cold. Even for them. What did they say? I told him everything. Dr. Merrick's words. Nolan's dismissal. Each sentence cut deeper than the last. Maisie's hang-up echoed in my mind like a final door slamming shut. It was as if they'd erased me. My grip tightened around the phone until the plastic casing creaked. I was done being their stepping stone. They thought I was finished. They were wrong. On the other end of the line, Marcus gave a short, sharp laugh. There he is. The Everett I know. So, what's the plan? Vengeful epic? Full-blown Shakespearean tragedy? Or something smarter? A grim smile tugged at my lips. Something better. But I'll need your help. Can you meet me once I'm out of here? Name it. Anytime, anywhere. His tone changed cool and serious. By the way, you're not going to like this. What now? Your kids. They're already talking to lawyers. Digging into your estate like you've already been lowered into the ground. The words hit like a slap. My estate. The house. The company. The years of sweat and sacrifice. They were circling it like vultures. I closed my eyes, picturing the old house. The warped porch steps. The fading family photos still hanging in the hall. The place where Lila and I had raised them. They wanted to sell it, tear it apart, just for a quick payday. My jaw clenched. The pain in my chest dulled beneath the weight of something colder. Let them try, I said flatly. We'll make sure they get nothing. That's more like it, Marcus replied. I'll start digging into their moves. Let's hit them where it counts. Good. I glanced at the nightstand, where Clara's gold watch glinted beneath the fluorescent lights. To Everett. Forever, Lila. It felt like a promise I wasn't done keeping. Start with their accounts, I said. I want to know everything. Already on it. Rest up. You've got a war to win. I ended the call, my pulse thrumming. The room was quiet again, save for the steady hum of the Ford drip and a distant cart rattling down the hallway. My eyes locked on the watch. Its second hand ticked in rhythm with my heartbeat. A memory surfaced, Marcus and me, years ago, sealing a deal with cheap bourbon in a cramped office. That moment saved my company. He'd stood by me then. He was standing by me now. I leaned back into the pillow and whispered into the silence. They'll see. Every single one of them. The walls seemed to shrink as I clutched my phone, its scuffed edges biting into my palm. Then it lit up. A message from Marcus. Check your email. You'll want to see this. My stomach twisted. I hadn't slept. My thoughts had replayed Marcus's warning over and over, Nolan and Maisie planning their next move before my body had even healed. I opened the email. My thumb trembled as I scrolled. Screenshots. Messages. Forwarded from someone in Marcus's legal circle. The words sliced through me. Nolan. House is worth at least 2.3. Sell it. Clear the debts. Maisie, I want something in the city. Modern, minimal, with big windows relieve face that emoji. A smile was a knife. She was sketching out her new life with my money like I was already in the ground. I zoomed in, catching Nolan's next message. He's not coming back. Let's move fast. The arrogance. The certainty. They truly believed I was gone. I remembered the day I handed Nolan a check to launch his first cafe. His eyes had been full of promises. I'll make you proud, Dad. He ran it into the dirt within 18 months. And now he wanted to liquidate my home to cover his mess. Maisie wasn't better. Her blog was a shrine to gratitude and mindfulness, but she couldn't even wait a week before laying claim to my bank account. The monitor beside me beeped louder, echoing the fury rising in my chest. I let my head fall back onto the pillow, the starch scraping my skin. My house, Lila's house, was nothing but a transaction to them. The same house with her garden still alive in the back. The same porch where we danced in the rain once, barefoot and laughing. I gripped the phone tighter. My knuckles ached. The screen blurred. Another buzz. Marcus. I answered. You saw the messages? He asked. His voice was tight, edged with anger. Yeah, I murmured. They're not even pretending anymore. Nolan's in deep. Creditors are closing in. He's desperate. Maisie just wants the spotlight. Thinks a luxury loft will boost her brand. I swallowed hard. They're betting I'll be dead before they need to answer for any of it. Then let's make sure they lose that bet, he said, voice like steel. We freeze their access. Lock them out. They'll feel it fast. You ready? Do it, I said without hesitation. But get me more proof. I want this airtight. Smart. I'll pull the full thread. By tomorrow, they'll be scrambling. I hung up and turned toward the window. The clouds outside were thick, hanging low like the weight pressing against my chest. I pictured the house empty, the doors locked, the key removed from their hands forever. Another memory surfaced. Nolan years ago, bragging about his restaurant over drinks, full of swagger. And me, writing yet another check. I believed in him. Fool. But I wouldn't make the same mistake again. I sat up slowly, ribs aching, and reached for the phone. My thumb hovered over the number for my private bank. One call, and I could shut it all down. Outside, a crow landed on the windowsill. Its dark eyes peered in through the glass, unblinking. I leaned forward, ignoring the sting in my chest. In my hand, the phone wasn't just a lifeline. It was a weapon. And this time, I'd fire first. Sunlight broke through the clouds, slipping between the blinds and drawing sharp golden lines across the white wall. I gritted my teeth through the pain, swung my legs over the side of the bed, and tightened my grip on the phone. The weight of yesterday's decision, locking Nolan and Maisie out, pressed down on me now like a flame burning slow in my bones. They'd spent years bleeding me dry, but I was done. Today, I would start taking back what was mine. I dialed the bank, my voice steady despite the rasp in my throat. The line clicked, and a woman answered, her tone flat and uninterested. Paramount Federal. How can I assist you? Everett Halbridge, I said, leaning forward as the 4-line tugged gently at my arm. I need to disable all secondary cards on my accounts. Effective immediately. Nolan and Maisie Halbridge. She paused, fingers tapping at a keyboard in the background. Sir, that's an unusual request. I'll need account verification. I rattled off the numbers from memory, clear despite the fog of medication. I'd built these accounts brick by brick. No one knew them like I did. My eyes flicked to Lila's watch on the bedside table. Its steady tick felt like an anchor. I pictured Maisie swiping my card for another luxury handbag. Nolan dodging loan sharks with my money. Not anymore. Done, the woman finally said, a note of surprise in her voice. The cards are disabled. Is there anything else I can help with? No, that's all. I hung up, a quiet surge of satisfaction rising in my chest. It was small, but it was the first step. I leaned back, the pillow cool behind my neck, and released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. A memory flickered, Maisie once, eyes wide and innocent, asking for a new card to cover her blog expenses. I'd said yes, like always. Never again. The door swung open. A nurse entered, her tray clinking with glass vials and gauze. She glanced at me over her mask, her eyes crinkling. "You look like someone who just hit the jackpot, Mr. Halbridge." "Something better," I replied with a half-smile breaking through. She chuckled, checking my chart, and for a moment, the normalcy of it all felt surreal. Like a quiet before the storm. My phone buzzed. "Marcus." A message. "Cards blocked." They're freaking out. "Nolan's blowing up his lawyer's line." I grinned. The first real smile in days. I could see it. Nolan, red-faced, pacing somewhere in public, losing control. Maisie, crocodile tears in place, watching her carefully crafted plans fall apart. They'd thought I was weak, that I was finished. They were wrong. The nurse left. The door creaked shut behind her, and I stared at the sunlight creeping across the floor. A crack in the darkness. Another memory hit. Nolan promising to repay the investment I made in his bistro, so certain, so confident. I'd believed him. Fool. But now? Now I was the one cutting the strings. My phone vibrated again. Nolan's name lit up the screen. My smile faded. He was calling, no doubt furious. Begging maybe, or threatening. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the decline button. The room felt suddenly still, the sunlight warm across my hand. I set the phone face down on the table and turned toward the window. The world was waiting, but the phone buzzed again. Nolan. Still calling. My pulse picked up. The hospital air felt tight against my skin. On the table beside me, my untouched lunch sat cold, congealed soup and a soggy roll, its faint onion scent mixing with antiseptic. I took a breath and picked up the phone. "Dad, what the hell?" Nolan's voice cracked through the speaker, raw, jagged, like he'd been yelling for hours. "You blocked the cards? Are you trying to ruin us?" I leaned back, feeling the forepull again at my arm. His anger didn't surprise me, but it still hurt. A dull ache that settled beneath the bruises. "Ruin you," I said, my voice calm, almost amused. "I'm protecting what's mine." "Protecting?" he spat. "You're screwing us." "I've got bills, Dad. Debts. You know that." I pictured him outside a bar somewhere, pacing with clenched fists, blaming me for the mess he made. Another memory surfaced, Maisie twirling in a new dress, giggling about her brand, paid for with my card. I'd smiled then. Proud. Stupid. "Maybe," I said slowly, "you should have thought of that before you left me to die in a hospital bed." Silence. Then a faint rustle. Maisie's voice filtered through, sweet and sickly, the tone she saved for her followers. "Daddy, please. We're worried about you. This isn't like you. Let's talk, okay? We can fix this." Worried. That word cut deeper than any insult. I gripped the phone tighter, knuckles pale against the black case. "Fix it." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Like you fix things by hanging up on the doctor's call?" Her voice sharpened, the sweetness gone. "You're being cruel," she said, mask slipping. "We're your children. UOS. OU." My voice rose just enough to carry the edge inside me. "I gave you everything. Cars. College. Your damn restaurant, Nolan. And when I was bleeding out, you vanished. We're done." There was a sharp intake of breath. Then Nolan came back on, voice a growl. "You'll regret this, old man. We'll get what's ours one way or another." "Good luck," I said coldly, and ended the call before they could respond. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the table beside Lila's watch. The soft ticking filled the silence. My chest rose and fell, a strange mix of victory and grief flooding my lungs. They were my children, my blood, and I had just shut the door on them. But it had to be done. Was I right, or was I becoming the monster they'd claim I was? The door creaked open, and a nurse stepped in, her sneakers squeaking softly against the linoleum. She gave me a look, brows furrowed, voice gentle. "You all right, Mr. Halbridge? You look like you're planning a war." I forced a smile, my fingers brushing against the edge of my phone. "Just settling some old debts." She chuckled, adjusting the foreline. "Well, you're looking stronger. Keep that energy up." She left, the door groaning shut behind her. I stared up at the ceiling, where the slanted shadows of the blinds sliced through the morning light. Nolan's threat echoed in my mind, We'll get what's ours. Let them try. I reached for the phone and scrolled to Marcus's number. Whatever came next, I'd be ready. The room was too quiet. The monitor beeped softly, a distant heartbeat. I sat up, ignoring the ache spreading through my chest, and dialed. The phone felt right in my hand now, like a weapon I'd just learned how to wield. Lila's watch caught the light on the bedside table, the second hand marching forward, steady and relentless. Nolan and Maisie thought they could break me, corner me, guilt me into surrender. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Marcus answered on the first ring. His voice buzzed with energy. "Everett, ready to turn up the heat?" "More than ready," I said, my tone like iron, even with the scratch in my throat. "I want them out of my house. Today. Change the locks. Dump their stuff outside. Let them feel what it's like to lose something." He laughed, sharp and gleeful. "Oh, I'm already on it. Locksmith's there now. Movers, too. Nolan's fancy sound system. Maisie's designer shoes. It's all going on the lawn." I closed my eyes and pictured it. Boxes under the old maple tree. Rain soaking through fabric and cardboard. Screens cracked. Heels ruined. A rush of satisfaction rose in me, but it was followed by something sharper, more hollow. A memory drifted in Christmas, long ago. The kids small, wide-eyed, stringing tangled lights around the living room. Laughter echoing through the walls of a house that once felt like a home. I shoved the thought away. That was gone. They'd made their choice. "Send me proof when it's done," I said quietly, opening my eyes. "I want to see it." "You got it," Marcus replied. "This'll sting. They'll be screaming by noon." "Good." I hung up and sat still, fingers drumming lightly against the sheets. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint aroma of stale coffee. The air felt heavy, weighted with the consequences of what I'd just done. Was it too far? No. They dragged me here, left me alone in that hospital bed, waiting to die. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. The door opened again. The same nurse returned, a tray in hand, clinking with gauze and fresh bandages. "You're quiet today," she said, eyeing me. "Everything okay?" "Better than ever," I replied, offering a half smile. She raised an eyebrow as she adjusted the 4-bag. "Well, you're healing fast. Keep that fire burning." She exited, and I leaned back against the pillow again, the fabric cool against my neck. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. I opened it, and there it was. A photo. A heap of boxes on the front lawn. Maisie's designer heels spilling from an open bin. Nolan's expensive gaming console half covered with a blue tarp. The rain blurred the edges of the photo, streaking the image like brushstrokes in a painting of justice. I stared at it, felt the grim satisfaction settle in my chest like an anchor. Then another buzz. "Maisie." A text. "You serious? We're coming to the house." My smile faded. My pulse quickened. Let them come. Let them find the new locks. Let them see the doors closed. I placed the phone down slowly, letting it vibrate against the table. Rain tapped at the window, now a quiet, steady rhythm, like a countdown. A second buzz. Nolan's name flashed on the cracked screen. I took a slow breath, the scent of disinfectant still sharp in the air, and answered. "You threw our stuff out?" Nolan's voice exploded through the speaker, raw with fury. Rain and wind howled in the background. "You're insane. It's pouring. My gear's ruined." I leaned back, letting his rage wash over me. "My house. My rules," I said calmly. "You don't live there anymore. You can't do this," he barked. "That's our home." I corrected him, my voice flat. "No, you made it clear I meant nothing to you. Now you get to feel the same." There was a pause, then Maisie cut in. Her voice high, brittle, no longer rehearsed. "Daddy, this is cruel. We'll see you for this. You can't just throw us out." I laughed a low, bitter sound. "Go ahead. Try it. It's my name on the deed. You've got nothing." I pictured them standing in the rain, surrounded by their dripping, scattered belongings. Cold. Soaked. Finally understanding what it meant to be cut off. Another memory surfaced. Just last year, sitting them down, asking, begging them to take responsibility, to grow up, to respect what they'd been given. Nolan had laughed in my face. Maisie had rolled her eyes. They had dismissed me like a nuisance. Now, No, I was the one closing the door. I'd let things slide for years. Hoped they'd change. Hoped they'd grow. No more. You're a monster, Maisie hissed over the phone, her voice full of venom. You'll pay for this. I already have, I said, voice steady despite the dull ache in my ribs. You made sure of that when you left me in that hospital bed alone. I ended the call. The silence that followed was louder than all their screaming. My hand trembled slightly as I set the phone down beside Lila's watch, still ticking softly, its steady rhythm more comforting than any apology my kids could offer. Their threats lingered in the air like smoke, but I felt no fear, only resolve. Cold, sharp, and final. Another buzz. Marcus. A text. Locks changed. They're losing it out there. I nodded to myself, the corners of my mouth curling upward. They were trapped now, and I was just getting started. A memory of the house flashed in my mind, the groan of its old stairs, Lila's garden out back now hidden behind a locked gate. A fortress. Mine. The door creaked again, and the nurse entered, clipboard tucked under one arm. Good news, Mr. Helbridge, she said with a bright smile. Doctor says you're clear for discharge. You'll be heading home soon. Home. The word struck something deep, a strange blend of longing and defiance. Yeah, I said quietly, my eyes drifting to the bedside table where my wallet and watch waited. I'm ready. She smiled and left. I stared at the table again, the gold of Lila's watch catching the light like a quiet whisper from the past. The house was waiting. The locks were new. The lawn littered with their broken sense of entitlement. They'd tried to break me, tried to bully me into silence. But now I was walking out of this place stronger than they ever imagined. Outside, the rain had thinned to a mist. The world beyond the glass felt closer. The hospital room, once a cage, now felt like a stepping stone. My bag sat neatly on the chair, packed with the few things I'd had here, a change of clothes, my wallet, Lila's watch. The monitor had been unhooked hours ago. Its absence made the silence even more complete. Then came the soft squeak of sneakers again. Nurse Maggie stepped in, her smile gentle, familiar. She'd seen me through the worst and somehow knew, without asking, what this meant. Ready to break out, Mr. Helbridge, she asked, adjusting the blinds. Golden sunlight spilled into the room like an omen. More than you know, I said, grinning through the dull throb in my chest. I stood, gripping the edge of the bed for support. My legs were unsteady, but they held. That was all I needed. I wasn't just leaving the hospital. I was leaving behind the man who had once believed in his children. The man who let betrayal chip away at him. Maggie handed me my jacket, her eyes twinkling. You've got that look, she said, like a general heading into battle. I chuckled softly as I slipped it on. Maybe I am. My gaze wandered to the small table next to the bed. The wood was scratched, worn down from years of use. I sat again, pulled open the drawer, and found a sheet of hospital stationery. A pen lay nearby, its cap chewed. Someone nervous had been here once. I wasn't nervous. Not anymore. I started writing. The pen moved with calm, deliberate strokes. Each word chosen. Each line a message. To Nolan and Maisie. Not a plea. Not an apology. A reckoning. My hand was steady. My mind clear. As I wrote, a memory drifted into focus, me at our old kitchen table, writing letters to Lila. She used to laugh when she read them aloud, her voice echoing through that house. The ache of her absence stirred again, but I pushed it down. This letter wasn't about love. It was about justice. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. I picked it up, keeping my voice low. All set, he said, his tone smug with satisfaction. Everything's updated. Notarized. Airtight. Your kids? They're headed to the hospital. Probably planning a performance, tears, threats, the works. You sure you're ready? Let them come, I said, folding the letter. They'll find what I left them. He chuckled. You're a cold one, Everett. I like it. Call me when you're out. I hung up, sealed the letter into a plain envelope, and placed it on the pillow. The white edge stark against the wrinkled sheets. That's what they'd find. No tearful reunion. No room for negotiation. Just words final and unshakable. I stood, bag in hand, and took one last look around the room. Lila's watch caught the light once more, the engraving on its back glowing faintly. To Everett. Forever, Lila. I felt her strength in that moment. A quiet kind of power. The kind that doesn't shout. Maggie appeared in the doorway again, her voice soft and warm. "Cab's waiting, General." I nodded, slinging the bag over my shoulder. The door creaked as I stepped into the hallway. The hinges moaned, almost as if reluctant to let me go. My shoes echoed against the polished linoleum. Each step felt like a vow. I wasn't just walking out of a hospital. I was walking into something new. Behind me, the door swung shut, and I didn't look back. The taxi rumbled down the streets of Brookstone, a quiet Midwest town still shaking off winter's hold. Outside the window, brick storefronts blurred past. Young trees lined the sidewalks, just starting to bloom. Spring was late this year, but it was here nonetheless. I leaned my head against the window. The cool glass soothed the heat behind my eyes. The scent of worn leather mixed with the faint chemical tang of the cab's air freshener. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I ignored it. My thoughts were still with the letter, sealed, resting on a pillow like a quiet bomb. By now, Nolan and Maisie would be storming into the hospital, hearts pounding with entitlement, expecting tears or forgiveness. Instead, they'd find a single page, a goodbye they didn't get to control. A memory surfaced, pushing Nolan and Maisie on the swings at the old park, their laughter echoing under a warm sky. I dreamed of a close family once, days full of joy, of purpose, but I'd clung to that dream too long. Even as their affection faded, as their greed grew, I held on. The taxi jolted over a pothole, snapping me back to the present. That dream was gone. I was done chasing ghosts. My phone buzzed again, insistent. Nolan's name lit up the screen. I answered, my voice flat. "What? Dad, what is this?" His voice teetered between rage and panic, the hum of the hospital behind him. "You're giving everything to charity?" "Everything." Maisie's voice cut in, softer but frayed at the edges. "Daddy, please. We're sorry. We didn't mean any of it. Don't do this." I stared out the window. The town slipped past in a blur of quiet streets and old homes. Their voices were a storm, but it couldn't reach me now. "You made your choice," I said, each word like stone. "You left me to die. This is the consequence." Nolan's voice cracked with desperation. "This is crazy. You can't just erase us. Watch me." I hung up. The screen went dark in my hand. Their voices cut off like a door slammed shut. My chest tightened, but not from sorrow, from relief. I'd carried them for too long, paid their bills, made excuses for every failure, every betrayal. No more. A text buzzed in from Marcus. "You did it, man. They're done. Proud of you." I nodded to myself, a faint smile tugging at my lips. The taxi slowed at a red light. I pulled my wallet from my coat pocket. Inside, tucked behind a few bills, was an old photo. Creased and faded. Nolan and Maisie still children. Faces sticky with cotton candy at the county fair. Grinning like they had the whole world in their hands. I traced the edge of the photo with my thumb. The ache came sharp, but only for a moment. Then it faded. I slipped the photo back into my pocket. Not forgotten, but no longer held too tightly. The driver glanced back in the mirror. "You okay, sir?" "Yeah," I said. "Just heading home." He nodded, and the taxi rolled on. The hospital was behind me, and with it, the letter I'd left behind, its truth now sinking into my children's lives like a stone dropped into deep water. I leaned against the window, the pulse of the city humming through the glass. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The cafe was warm, alive with soft chatter and the scent of fresh bread. Steam rose from mugs and pastries gleamed behind glass. I sat near the window, elbows on a scarred wooden table. Outside, the streets of Belridge stirred with life, kids weaving through sidewalk chalk, couples hand in hand, the spring sun warming the brick buildings. Marcus sat across from me, his tie loose, eyes dancing as he flipped through the legal paperwork. "You're a regular saint now, Everett," he said with a smirk. "Giving it all away. Kids programs, clinics, shelters. You're rewriting your legacy." I laughed, a real laugh this time. Easier than it had been in months. Just doing what feels right, I said. They'll make better use of it than my kids ever did. He leaned back in his chair, coffee in hand. You heard from them again? Not since the hospital, I said, shrugging. They've run out of moves. Let them figure it out. Marcus nodded, his eyes softening. You're a tougher man than I am. But damn, Everett. You pulled it off. I looked out the window. A memory crept in me years ago, drawing up my first will. I'd pictured Nolan and Maisie carrying on my name. Grateful. Strong. I'd believed they would value the legacy I built. But they didn't value me. They valued the account balance. The sting of that was still there, but dull now, like a bruise on its way out. I reached into my coat and pulled out the photo again. Their faces, young and carefree, smiled up at me from another lifetime. They'd once been my reason for everything. But now, they were a chapter closed. The table had a small drawer, one of those odd features in old cafes, and I slid the photo inside. Not with anger. Not with regret. Just peace. You good? Marcus asked. Yeah, I said, pushing the drawer shut with a soft click. Better than good. He raised his mug. To the new Everett Halbridge. To starting over, I replied, tapping my cup against his. The ceramic was warm in my hand. The cafe door jingled as a young family stepped inside, laughter chasing the spring air. I watched them for a moment, then turned back to the window. The town was alive, brighter somehow, as if I was seeing it clearly for the first time. A thought sparked. A community center. Something for the kids around here. A place to give them chances, real ones. Not just money, but meaning. The idea lit something in me. A quiet joy. A purpose I hadn't felt in years. I took a sip of coffee, the steam curling around me like a promise. The world was still open, and I was ready to walk through its doors.
Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments. Subscribe to keep this conversation going.